and welcome in to Illini Drive. Thursday night, Isaac Trotter joined alongside Jake Hassan, Eli Schuster, and our producer, Tatiana Perry. How you doing, Tati?
Good. Is there going to be a time where you don't mess up my name when you say it?
Party.
See, you did this.
Yeah.
You did this.
I did. I really do apologize. I went too fast the last time on Tuesday and accidentally mispronounced your name, said Patsy, and now Eli and Jake are insufferable about it. They will not stop talking about it. But
3 straight days of Jake Hassan on the radio. Let's go!
This is going to be very, very interesting. Illinois goes to play Wisconsin last night at home, loses 72-60, had a lead for a decent part of the first half, kind of fought back and tied it 49-49 in the midway through the second half, but then unraveled down the stretch. We'll definitely have to break that down. Also want to talk a little bit of MLB. There are a couple signings today. A.J. Pollock signs with the Dodgers for a 5-year deal. Yeah. Oh, and then the Cubs finally got off the schneid and did something and signed a reliever. So we'll break that down. Might also talk a little bit of NBA. But there's a lot of storylines around Illinois basketball right now as they lose yet again to Wisconsin, 72-60. And as I sat there after the game ends, I go, Illinois did everything that they wanted to do. They forced Wisconsin into 17 turnovers. They confused and befuddled Ethan Happ and shut him down for 9 points. He ended up with 6 turnovers. First time in 43 games that Ethan Happ didn't score in double figures. And Georgi Bashanishvili had an awesome game.
Yeah.
If you would have told me that Georgi Bashanishvili would have scored 20 points and had 8 rebounds, that Ethan Happ would have 9 points, and that Illinois would force 17 Wisconsin turnovers, and that Illinois would be in the bonus from the 15-minute mark of the second half, I think Illinois wins that game. And instead, Illinois shoots 15 more field goals from the field than Wisconsin and loses by 12. So when you have a situation like this, as Illinois drops to 5-14 overall, 1-7 in Big Ten play, it really, really hurts, and it really stung last night because I felt like that was a game that you had everything go your way and you just weren't able to get that one big shot. Illinois ended up shooting just 35% from the field, 4 of 21 from 3. It was their second worst performance from behind the arc so far this season, other than the 0-for-11 debacle against Northwestern earlier this year. Jake, you look at that game, you see all those things went right, and Illinois still found a way to lose. How disheartening is that for where these guys at, where a win, any win is just so absolutely necessary?
Yeah, I mean, it's crushing for them because especially after coming off that Iowa loss that was really bad, and then you come in against Wisconsin. I don't think anybody in this room expected Illinois to win that game in the first place, but the fact that they kept it so close, the fact that they forced so many turnovers, and Georgi Bashanishvili had his way, essentially. I mean, he wasn't in foul trouble until late in the second half either. I mean, he played a pretty clean game for the most part. It was theirs for the taking, and they just couldn't capitalize. I think they only had like 10 points off Wisconsin turnovers.
Yeah, Illinois really did struggle to capitalize off of any of the opportunities that Wisconsin gave them. Wisconsin sent them to the free throw line 22 times. Mm-hmm. Illinois was 12 of 22 from the line, including 5 missed free throws in a row in the second half. After tying that game at 49, they had 4 turnovers. 3 of those were offensive fouls. They had 5 missed free throws, and they gave up a 11-1 run by Wisconsin, and that kind of changed the tempo of the game. And Eli, you see Illinois, and it felt like everything this year is kind of run through either Ayo Dosunmu or Trent Frazier, and this is the first time in 2 months that both of those guys didn't get in double figures. Trent Frazier finishes 3 of 10 from the field, just 1 of 5 from three-point range, and finishes with 9. Ayo Dosunmu 4 of 16 from the field, 0 of 5 from behind the arc. He only had 8. What went wrong? Why did those 2 guards that have led Illinois in scoring almost basically every other game other than for Georgie, why weren't they able to get going last night?
Well, I think I guess I would say I'm a little surprised to see Ayo not get going as much as he could have. However, I don't put a lot on him because this is a guy that I imagine has to be relatively tired with the numbers that he's been putting up recently, the performances he's been giving. And, that's not necessarily an excuse to put or to hand over towards him. But, I think he's done plenty recently. This kind of game was coming from him. So that's not something that I think, we could pick apart too much. Frazier's been just inconsistent all year. So I think this is a guy who he puts up numbers in bunches, and he's failed to do that in the later parts of the season, especially in Big Ten play. And so when we look at both of them, I mean, this game was bound to happen. Frazier's inconsistent, and Iowa's going to have to come back down to earth a little bit. So in that case, it was going to happen on the same night at one point, and that's what happened last night. So I don't put a lot on Io. I think he's a guy that's played plenty well recently.
Right.
I just put it on the whole team. I think altogether, this is a team that needs to shoot better. Your offense isn't there. I know you rely on a guy like Frazier, but you got to try. If you're Underwood, right? If you're Coach Underwood or even the coaching staff in general, Frazier's been inconsistent all year. You need to try to find other ways to score. And really, last night it was obvious that they were just going to milk, Georgie, just give the ball to him. And while that's fine, you're not going to win that way. You need to try to figure out another way to get someone involved.
Illinois, I felt like when I watched this game, it kind of really showcased to me what the real story is. And we're going to get into the freshmen not getting a lot of playing time, and we'll talk about that. But I think the biggest story this season is how much Trent Frazier and Kipper Nichols have regressed from last year compared to this year. And that has really been key. I mean, Kipper Nichols is a guy who averaged 10 points a game for you last year. He shot 42% from three. This year he has 3 straight games with 0 points. He's shooting about 22% from the arc. Mm-hmm. Why is this happening, Jake? Why are the top 2 scorers from last year's team struggling so much this year?
I mean, with Kipper, and I said this a little while ago, like a week or so ago, Kipper Nichols is showing us that he's not the guy that's going to score a lot of points for you. He's not the guy that's going to take over for you. This is the norm now. He's going to chip in a couple points, couple rebounds. Yeah, he gives you athleticism, and yeah, he gives you some hustle plays, and he plays hard for you. But at the end of the day, Kipper Nichols is not the guy we saw flashes of last year. We're seeing now that was the anomaly, that was the outlier, and now that's why he got removed from the starting lineup, because he doesn't do enough to warrant that spot anymore, and now you have to see what Aaron Jordan will give you. As far as Frazier, I don't know. I mean, I have no answers. It seems like he's still taking the shots that he usually takes, and he's still shooting with confidence. It's just not working for whatever reason.
I think for at least to start with Frazier, this is just a typical sophomore slump scenario for Frazier. I think he came out firing last season. Teams didn't know who he was. He had no name for himself. He came in behind a 5-star guy with Mark Smith that they thought was going to be the next big thing, and he went off. And I think it's yes, you want him to continue that, but we also have to remember kind of the freshman season he put up and the numbers he was putting up was pretty crazy last year. And so I think he was gonna regress a little bit, especially when, and I've said this I think before the season even started, just playing with Ayo Dosunmu. The two of them are ball dominant point guards. You have to get into a rhythm in a game, and there's a reason why we see Trent scoring bunches, like I've said before. It's because when he gets into his rhythm, then he's the guy with the ball. They keep him with the ball. And he's able to do that. But he's not able to establish any rhythm because of the fact that you also need Ayo to have the ball. And Ayo should be having the ball right now. That's the case. So the two of them still haven't figured out how to play well together. And I think that's just what it is. When you look at Kipper, though, for Kipper, I think it might be time to just think about, does Kipper really work in this Underwood offense? Is he the type of player for it? Last year, we all bought in on it. We all said, we all kind of talked about this is perfect for Kipper. We think Kipper's going to be great in this. He's an athletic guy. He can play, they play small sometimes, and he'll play at the 4, stuff like that. He's not really a 4, he's more of a 3, but they'll play him at the 4. We're like, he could do that in this Underwood offense. That's fine. He's athletic. He can get inside. He can work his way around the rim. He's a good shooter. This offense he should thrive in. But I think now what we're seeing this season is maybe that's not true. Maybe he's actually not that kind of player, because maybe he does work better in a slower pace. And last season was slower pace. Last season, they didn't buy into the fact that they were shooting in the first 7 seconds. So I honestly think right now for Kipper Nichols, things might be moving too fast for him, and maybe this offense isn't going to be perfect for him.
A thing I think about too with Kipper Nichols is when you have opportunities like he had last night. He had a wide open 3 from the corner in transition. He had no one around him for 7 feet, and that shot was one of the ugliest 3-point shots we saw last night. And Illinois missed some ugly ones. And so when you've kind of seen how this thing has gone, you see the confidence is shot. Part of me wonders if he is playing out of position a little bit because he's forced to play the 4. If he was able to play out on the wing a little bit, play the 3, take advantage of some of those smaller wings that he's kind of going up against, would that help him? I don't know. But really what we saw last night was just a player who has 0 confidence on the floor. And he played 10 minutes last night and gave you 0 points. That's a 3rd game in a row. And if Illinois wants to make anything out of this season, either the freshmen are going to have to play or Kipper Nichols is going to have to play. And we talked to Brad Underwood about that after the game. Brad had an interesting quote when he said that Kipper brings that experience. We know what he can do on the floor. They're still buying into his defense. I don't know if I'm quite there with him on that, if I don't agree with Underwood fully on that, but he's giving him his shot, and his minutes have definitely gone down. But what do you do with him moving forward? What do you do?
Yeah, I think Kipper is a guy that has to come off the bench for now. I will say I think he's somebody that at least, and I brought this up a couple times, defensively, I haven't necessarily seen anything that worries me too much. I think he's out there. He's doing his job, whatever. That's fine. I also think his offense, his shooting has been terrible. His offensive numbers, you want him to be a scorer. He's not that right now. But at least on offense, the ball moves fine through him. He's fine. He's usually fine passing the ball. He's not getting a bunch of turnovers necessarily. So he's out there and he's not hurting you a bunch in that category. He's just not scoring for you. And that's why he can't be starting. I think he's athletic enough where, he needs some, he needs minutes in there. This might be a situation where, he needs 8 to 10 minutes, right? We got 10 minutes last night. That might be where it has to be around. I think I disagree, and this is something we can get into later, with where he was used in the game. He shouldn't have been put in with 4 minutes left. That was an odd move. But because you think he's an upperclassman, that could be the case. No, I don't think he should be in at the end of the game for you, not with his scoring efforts when you need to come back. But that's beside the point. It's a situation where I don't care if he stays around 10 minutes, that's fine, but he can't be starting. And also you need to start giving, some of, and we'll get into this, Aaron Jordan's minutes, giving some of these other guys, giving some of their minutes to Tevian Jones, Allen Griffin. Those two guys need to come in. So I think for Kipper, you can use him right now the way we kind of saw him being used. You just have to pick the right spots to put him in, and he shouldn't be starting for you.
Before we jump into all of the negatives, I do want to hit on a positive, because Georgi Bashaniashvili is an outstanding player right now for you. And what he did last night was magnificent. You talk about a guy in Ethan Happ who is top 3 in the Big Ten in scoring and rebounding and assists, and Georgi shut him down. Mm-hmm. He's averaging almost 14 points a game and 6 rebounds in Big Ten play. He averaged 9 points and 1.8 rebounds in high school. That's the type of numbers he's having. He's having an outstanding season so far for Illinois. 20 points against Wisconsin. He had 20 against Minnesota, dropped 22 earlier this season against Notre Dame. 18 against Indiana, 15 against a really good Michigan team with a good defender in John Teske inside. This kid is legit, and he was outstanding on the glass, too. He had 18 offensive rebounds in the last 3 games combined. Jake, when you look at him, I try to think back over the years of the best low post scorers that Illinois has had, and he might be one of the best in the last decade. Myers Leonard had his moments a little bit, but Nana Egwu wasn't known as a low post defender, didn't have those moves. Vintage Mike Thorne before he got hurt kind of had those a little bit, but Maverick Morgan wasn't that guy. Mike Thorne wasn't that guy. Even a guy like Mike Tisdale back in 2009 wasn't really that type of player. This is a profound season that he's having. I didn't think Georgie was going to be this good as a senior, let alone as a freshman. This is high major player, and kudos to the staff for going out and getting a kid like this, and obviously he's taking advantage.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Tommy Polson yesterday, that before the season started, we were saying that he was an unknown. You didn't know what you were going to get out of him, because you would be going into this season relying on probably Samba Kane and then Adonis De La Rosa when he was ready to take those center minutes. Then you get to the first game of the season and Georgie's starting, and then he starts playing like this. I don't think it's out of the question that Georgie could be the leading scorer by the time the season's over. If guys keep going through cold streaks like this and he keeps playing like this. If he could put up 20 against Ethan Happ, that's a confidence booster. I don't think it happens, but I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah, but what Illinois is doing with him is really surprising to me, too, as they have really kind of centered their offensive attack around him. And, of course, Io's going to be in the mix there, and the ball's going to run through his hands. But a lot of those possessions are going through Georgie, and I don't blame him. It's a high-quality touch when he gets there. I think I figured out the stat that he was shooting like 62% from the floor in Big Ten play. That's ridiculously good. And Eli, why is he having this success?
Well, I just think he's a good player. I think it's just what it comes down to.
That's some hot take analysis right there.
I don't think. Well, that's a question that I don't really know. There's not an appropriate answer for. Right. I think it's, and there's no way to look at. Maybe it's the development that Underwood's had. Maybe it's maybe it's these moves. No, it's just the fact that he's a good player, and it was the one thing that the staff did right was it was a good evaluation. But yeah, this is a guy, and it's not like this guy doesn't have any, decent experience playing basketball. Yes, he kind of picked up the game a little later in his life. He kind of enjoyed playing it. I think he talked about starting when he was 10, 11-ish. But, this is a guy who's big. He played overseas. He comes and he plays, in the New York, New Jersey area, which is not necessarily
with high major talent.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not an easy place to play by any means. You see his numbers in high school. It doesn't necessarily blow you away. However, he was very efficient. He was a guy that in high school he could shoot the three. He was an overall well-rounded threat for you, and yeah, I mean, he's also a true forward, so that's what's really exciting about him is the fact that next season he should be playing at the forwards position more, and that's what's really exciting because he actually can shoot the ball relatively decently. And if he works on that in practice, this is the development of his game, and the reason why he really is going to become a NBA prospect probably is the fact that he can actually have a shot to his game. And this offseason, he'll be able to work on that shot with a guy like Kofi Cockburn coming in and taking over the center position. So he has a lot of elements to his game we haven't even seen yet. The thing that's really encouraging is that his post moves are this good right now because, again, he won't traditionally be playing the center position. But the fact that even in the power forward spot, he can come in and do that is really encouraging. Or even next year, he's going to get minutes there too. That's fine. But this is a guy that has a lot that we haven't even seen him be able to do. And so it's really encouraging what we've already seen.
I think Georgie's shooting 67% from the free throw line right now, and that's kind of underwhelming for him. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to shoot 72,
He's a good
73.
shooter. I think he really is.
Exactly. And he's only shooting 19% from behind the arc, and I think that number could really improve. And you talk about bringing in Kofi Cockburn next year. What type of game do you think that could kind of unlock for Georgie's skill set? Because I think that those two could play together really well in some high-low sets, especially if Georgie adds the three. That's a dangerous front court if both of those guys are on the floor together.
Well, first off, you have size, which you haven't had in years. So that's the biggest part that you're getting right now is you're going to have at the 4 spot, you're not playing small anymore. You're going to have someone who he's a larger guy, and it's not like a Finke moving to 4, and he's a smaller guy that was playing at the center position, at least being skinny. He has the height, but when you have Georgie moving there, and then you have Kofi coming in at the center position, like I said, what Georgie's going to be able to work on during the offseason is his shot. So it's something that we haven't seen, at least recently. At the beginning of the year was better, and it's because he was coming in off of, he was able to shoot during the summer.
All
that
summer,
kind of stuff.
right.
That's what he could do that if he wanted.
Sure.
He's not practicing that anymore. We know that in practice they're not letting him shoot a bunch. He's practicing rebounding, and his rebounding's gotten better. That's what's encouraging
Much
too.
better.
Is the fact
his
that
defense is really good too.
Yeah, the fact that we've been able to see him actually grow in that way has been nice because we can see that he can develop these skills. But that means that he hasn't had time to work on a shot. He will be able to get that shot back instantly if he's able to work on it again during this offseason, which he will, and they're going to let him do it. That's what's really encouraging because next year he'll be able to come in and you'll see an element of the game that you haven't seen yet. So I still am relatively confident when he goes to fake a 3. I'm
People
okay
still
with him
have to
taking
come
it.
out after him,
Yeah,
right?
because in next year that's going to be even worse. But the best thing is when he can establish his 3-point shot, which he did for the first couple games this year. Now it's kind of gone. Now he didn't necessarily do that. He bricked a couple, and people don't need to worry too much about him. They do respect him though because they know that he will take it. Next year though, he's going to take a handful of them, and that's what's going to be really encouraging is the fact that then those moves where you're going to go up and you're going to fake it. Then you're going to be able to drive in and, who knows, even have an opportunity to throw up an oop for Kofi Cockburn. That's what's really exciting about it.
Illinois is well on their way to their second straight under 500 season under Brad Underwood. And it's kind of begged the question, do Tevian Jones, do Alan Griffin, and do Samba Kane need to get on the floor more? We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to break that down on WPGU 107.1. Welcome back to Illini Drive. Isaac Trotter joined alongside Eli Schuster, Jake Hassan, and our own Tati Perry. Tati, how you doing?
I was doing great. I really was. And then these guys.
You could tell that Isaac really focused on saying Tati Perry. That's
I did
Really
not.
heavy
didn't screw up.
emphasis
He really
this
put his
time.
back into that one.
He really tried
I
to-
was really
Isaac,
trying.
I'm proud that you finally were able to say a 4-letter name.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
really hard. I had no problem saying it till
I think you
yesterday.
didn't deserve that.
Till yesterday. Spent the first segment talking Illinois basketball
Dial
as they
back,
lose
Tati.
to Wisconsin 72-60 to drop to 1-7 in conference play. But kind of talked a little bit about Trent Frazier and Kipper Nichols have really taken a step back. But that's kind of the big story. But the second other story that we definitely need to break down is that Illinois continues to not play their freshmen, and Brad Underwood didn't play Samba Kane and Alan Griffin in the second half. Tevian Jones played just 52 seconds in the second half. Those three freshmen combined for 8 minutes played. Kipper Nichols in his third
What is he
straight.
doing? What is going on right now? Why are you like that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's the most.
And neither
You're
did the
on
viewers.
camera!
It's fine. People can go watch what I was doing now. Now they don't even need to know.
Weird, maybe uncomfortable. I'd also like to point out that walk-on Samson Oladmaje played more minutes than Griffin and Samba combined, which is preposterous.
Sampson was in the game to hack a hap, which I didn't mind. I understand what you're saying, but I don't mind. But I think that there's the big thing here is when you don't play Alan Griffin and Samba Kane and Tevian Jones in a season when you're 5-14 and you continue to give 30 minutes a game to DeMonte Williams, who scored 4 points last night, and you give 10 minutes to Kipper Nichols, who scored 0 points last night, and you give 7 minutes to Adonis De La Rosa, who scored 2 points last night and gave up 3 easy layups at the rim.
And
There's-
a loose ball that it looked like he bent exclusively at the waist to try and go get.
Nate Reavers puts up career high 22 points last night and hit a couple threes in his eye because Adonis De La Rosa comes out from the basket and is just really ineffective.
I think I can close out faster than he can. I'm pretty slow.
You are. I feel like Brad Underwood is really, really putting himself in a really rough spot. And I asked him in the press conference after the game why they didn't play, and he said pace of the game, tempo. There are a lot of timeouts. He thought the defense was good, and he said that the freshmen have to pay their dues. Eli, what'd you make of that?
I made of it. He didn't know how to answer it. I think that it was. I was really. I don't know. I wouldn't say surprised by the answer, but I would say that it wasn't a great answer because you're up there and you say that you're waiting for these guys to pay their dues, and you sit there and you say what dues have left to pay at this point, because when you sit there and earlier in the season, and also I think one reason that statement comes in a little hypocritical is because when you look at Alan Griffin, this is a guy who, earlier in the season was averaging more points than he is now, or more minutes than he is now. Same as a guy like, Tevian Jones. And obviously Tevian Jones had a suspension, a long-time suspension, but he was getting some minutes early on. But Alan Griffin is especially something that amazes me just because he had a streak where he was getting double-digit minutes for a little while.
In
and
Maui, when you're playing really good
in Maui
teams.
against Iowa State is his career high in minutes, and it played. He hasn't. So
He played crunch time minutes against Gonzaga too.
yeah, so it's confusing to me, and I don't understand what he's doing. When you say pay your dues, it seems like they've already paid it, and apparently they, unless they did something on the court that was really bad at the beginning of the year, which nothing stood out as really bad. They have typical freshman faults that in terms of turning over the ball and fouling a little too easily. Both Tevian and Alan Griffin have that problem, but there's nothing that they've done. I think that rewards them no playing time. Again, we're not in practice. We don't see what's going on. But at this point, you have 5 wins on the year. And, you're making your way through Big Ten play right now. Postseason is out of the picture. These guys, it's a legitimate argument that you see online, and Twitter is completely fine with bringing it up, that they can transfer at the end of this year. And that's something that's understandable to talk about. I don't necessarily go that far to bring that up into the conversation right now. What I think is just you have 5 wins. These are young guys. They're the future of your program. They should be on the court developing.
And I don't think we're necessarily calling for these guys to get 25 minutes a game.
No,
I think that we're
10
talking
minutes.
10 to 15 minutes, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Not when Aaron Jordan plays 35.
Not when Aaron Jordan plays 35. Not when DeMonte Williams plays 30.
Yeah.
And those those numbers right there, they can come down, and both of those guys are saying it can still be in the rotation. I don't think that I'm coming from this point where I'm saying Aaron Jordan needs to sit on the bench and Tevian Jones and Alan Griffin need to play 100% of the time. Absolutely not. But
I'm not even saying either one of them need to start.
Right. It's
I'm just saying they
inexcusable
need
that
to
Griffin
split
gets 2
minutes.
minutes. It's
Yeah.
inexcusable that Griffin gets 2 minutes. And there is no argument out there that can then justify the fact that Adonis De La Rosa is a better defensive player right now than Samba Kane. It is just not out there. Samba Kane had 3 blocks against Iowa.
Especially when you're on someone like Ethan Happ, and when you're on
Nate
someone like
Reavers.
yeah,
You need to
when
be
you're on
quick.
these two, you need quickness and you need length.
It
And
didn't
Adonis,
make sense.
So that's why last night, that's probably the thing that really frustrated me the most, wasn't it? Because I thought strongly, and I think I even said it on the radio show when we talked about this game coming up, this should be a Samba Kane game. In the sense when Georgie's out, Samba should be in. Because I think Samba could have had a solid game in there. I think his length against Happ and
Reavers.
right? Reavers. Reavers as well, who had his random career
22
high.
points, yeah.
And he shot 7 of 11, I'm pretty sure. So I guarantee you Sam McCain would have played better defense on him than Adonis did.
It wouldn't have been close. And we can kind of break, Tevian Jones has a couple early jumpers that he pulled in the first half that you didn't necessarily love. But he also had an outstanding offensive rebound that he went up over Ethan Happ to get, and it got him his second foul. And when Illinois is in the second half there, Wisconsin shooting 57% from the field in the second half. So your defense wasn't great. And then offensively, you had 9 made field goals in the second half. And you can't mix it up one time and add some length like Tevian Jones, or add some athleticism and three-point shooting ability in Alan Griffin, or add even more rim protection in Samba Kane. It's just really hard to justify.
What's crazy is we're not just talking one guy that's not getting time. We're not even talking 2 guys. We're talking 3 guys. And in the second half, one of them sees a minute. Not even 20 seconds.
52 seconds.
50 seconds. All right. One of them sees 52 seconds. The other 2 don't see.
He got in the game with a minute and 39 seconds left. Promptly drew a foul. Went to the free throw line. Knocked one down and then got pulled out.
So you have Tevian come in at the tail end of the second half when the game was gone, and then you don't even see Alan Griffin and Samba Kane. These are 3 players that are not getting time.
They all got in the first half though too.
They were
all in the first half, and then you just
thought,
yank them when it's the most important time.
Yeah.
So why trust them then and not now? And about Underwood saying they need to pay their dues, who do they owe dues to in the first place? This is a young team. They don't owe dues to Trent Frazier. They don't owe dues to Io. They're the same year. Who do they owe dues to? Not Kipper Nichols, because he's
if it's off court. If it's off court, Tevian Jones is paid a game's worth of dues, which should get him back into the rotation. So. And I think that's a great point.
Alan Griffin paid his due for sleeping in and missed 2 games.
Well,
he did that.
And Jake, I think that's a solid point. Here you go. Say thank you. Say thank you.
No.
All right. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Usually, if I tell you have a solid point, you're gonna come in.
Because you want me to, so I'm not going to.
Well, good. Then I win. That's
Get
reverse psychology. So anyway, this is a situation where that's a good point in the sense that.
Thank you.
There you go. In the point. In the sense.
Yourself up for that one.
Oh my goodness, Jake. So in the point that none of these guys are waiting for someone else to leave, or waiting else for someone to have a bad game. There's not a lot of competition right now. So instead, you're just playing Kipper Nichols and Aaron Jordan, because that's usually who they're substituting in for. I know that Underwood preaches positionless basketball, whatever. They're subbing in for Aaron Jordan and Kipper Nichols, those 2.
And DeMonte Williams.
And DeMonte Williams, yes.
About DeMonte Williams, really quick, I don't mind him playing that many minutes. He played, he got 7 rebounds. He only took 1 shot. He nailed it. I think he could maybe be in the 20-minute range. 30's a little high.
20
but
is fine. That's
I
a
don't.
That's a 11-minute difference, though.
Yeah.
And you can't be a 3 guard in the Big Ten and shoot 1 shot.
Mm-hmm.
I looked it up yesterday. DeMonte Williams is the least scoring wing in the Big Ten that starts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can't do that. You cannot be out on the floor and shoot 1 shot and have 3 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was negative 16 in the plus minus.
Yeah.
So the rebounding was fine, and there were instances in the first half. I thought Illinois' defense in the first half was awesome. I thought Aaron Jordan played great defensively. But Aaron Jordan and DeMonte Williams don't deserve 30 minutes a night. Mm-hmm. And Kipper Nichols hasn't proven that he can play at this level right now. Mm-hmm. And 3 straight scoreless games, it's just really inexcusable. And moving forward, I'd be very interested to see how Underwood uses Tevian Jones and Alan Griffin, because those are the guys that, Tevian Jones had 3 points and a couple rebounds against Iowa. Samba Kane had 4 points and 3 blocks. Alan Griffin had 7 points, knocked down 2 threes, had a nice layup and 3 rebounds and an assist against Iowa. You can't find any time for them on the floor.
Well, and it's just weird because Underwood, it's it feels like he keeps changing his mind. Tevian Jones got 16 minutes against Iowa, and then he got double-digit minutes, I think, against Minnesota too. And then Griffin got meaningful minutes in both of those games. And then you just completely walk that back, where he doesn't have any consistency, it seems like. How are these guys supposed to build their confidence and build their game when you're fluctuating their minutes like that?
And I think if Underwood was honest with us, he would say, well, Tevian Jones struggles in foul trouble and doesn't play the greatest defense and sometimes doesn't know the sets. Mm-hmm. Alan Griffin sometimes struggles to turn the ball over a lot and isn't great at knowing the sets. And Samba Kane is extremely raw. While all those may be true, you're 5-14. You're 1-7 in Big Ten play. Aaron Jordan and Adonis De La Rosa are not going to win you any games next year. And if you don't get Samba Kane and Tevian Jones and Alan Griffin on the floor down the stretch here, they won't help you either. They'll help another program.
Yep.
Here's the thing, too. I understand I understand the other perspective of it, which you just bring up. Alan Griffin turns over the ball a lot. Tevian Jones is getting plenty of fouls when he's out there. He gets 2 quick fouls usually when he's out there, right? I understand and then Samba Kane, he doesn't understand our system yet. Yeah, I completely understand the arguments that can be made from a coaching perspective. And I understand that there's stuff that you can see in practice where, maybe they're not hitting their spots correctly. But at the end of the day, you have 5 wins. We keep bringing it up, but it's important. You have 5 wins. And when you have 5 wins and you have 12 Big Ten games left now? Jeez. One of them's in Maryland at Madison Square Garden. You have 12 Big Ten. This season's done for the most part.
And Illinois is not finishing 17 and 15.
And I'm not even going to the NIT at this point.
No. And I understand, there's people that make the case of, but if you can win a game, why not go win a game? And I'm not saying that this is NBA tanking. I'm saying that, 1, I think these guys might give you a better chance to win a game because obviously the current ones aren't doing it. And 2, why not take that chance and develop players to win more games in the future? So it's a situation where I know the argument that people can make against it, but I think the record right now, it doesn't make sense with that argument.
And again, I don't think any of us in this room are going to go out and say Samba Kane, Tevian Jones, and Alan Griffin are awesome Big Ten players yet. They're not. They're freshmen, but they have to be able to get out on the floor and help you try to get to that point, because if they don't get that playing time, they're going to transfer. I'm not saying that they've already decided and that their minds have been made up, but in this era of college basketball and in this era where you can move around and get a waiver and get to play right away, we saw it with Mark Smith. You're going to go to another place. Mark Smith is leading the country in three-point shooting percentage.
Keep in mind, especially with Tevian Jones, is at least when there's transfer conversation at all, he's the biggest one that I think should come into
Alan's family's not happy either, so both those are same.
Well, yeah, no, I understand that. But
family was a huge impact last time.
Yes,
we saw this exact situation.
And I understand Alan Griffin's family not being happy, but Tevian, I think, in this conversation is more important, only because this is not where he wanted to go initially.
No.
This isn't the place he wanted to go initially. They sold Alan Griffin on this place. There were places that came in at the end. I know Syracuse was in on him at the end there.
Villanova.
There were teams that really liked him because they liked what he could offer up, shooting wise.
Tournament teams.
And so
he'd have plenty of interest.
Yeah, so for him, Illinois did a good job closing in on that. But Tevian Jones here, out of the two of them, and both of them can end up being great players. But Tevian Jones right now is the one that you look at and go, this guy's extremely athletic, and this guy could be a quick pro talent, right? Alan Griffin's the type of, maybe he goes to Villanova and he's a 4-year dude, right? Mikal Bridges, great. You're in the NBA.
That's a top 10 lottery pick.
Yeah, but if you're Tevian Jones, you can be out quicker. You're a great talent. And he didn't want to come here initially. Mm-hmm. He was going to go to Arizona. He said, this is sketchy going on right now. I'm going to ditch. And so probably the right move on his part, but he's someone that would leave, I think, in a heartbeat. And unless you show him, and I saw him exiting the tunnel after the Minnesota win, he was very pumped up. That was a moment for all of them, obviously, where they're pumped up. But that's the most expression I've seen him show, actually being satisfied. And he played in that game. He had a big three in that game. He made an impact and they won, and that lit a fire under him. You could tell he was really excited. But if you don't play him for the remainder of this year and he just sits there and he's getting 4 minutes a game, 5 minutes a game, or maybe he gets
immediately.
Yeah, or maybe he gets 13 minutes one game and then the next game gets 4, he will be gone. And he needs to be someone that's getting around 10 minutes a game consistently.
I think that when you look at this Illinois roster, you're desperate for a wing that can make plays and go get a dunk and knock down some threes. Kipper Nichols isn't that.
Nope.
DeMonte Williams isn't that.
Mm-mm.
Aaron Jordan is a good shooter, doesn't really get to the rim much.
Mm-mm.
Tevian Jones is supposed to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at and you can see him improve over the next 12 games, you could go into next year and you go, wow, we feel really good because Trent and Io are still going to be really solid players. Mm-hmm. And Georgie is very good. And Kofi Cockburn is a top 30 prospect for a reason and is a monster inside. Oh, and now we have a wing in Tevian Jones. That's what you need from him. And
a sharpshooter in Alan Griffin to replace what you think you have in Aaron Jordan.
And Alan Griffin has a much higher ceiling than Aaron Jordan does too.
Yeah.
And unless they get that chance to show it off, there's a really good chance Illinois doesn't have those in their roster last year. And if you constantly have this turnover with your roster, if you constantly have the DJ Williams, the Jalen Coleman-Lands, the Michael Finkeys, the Mark Smiths transferring, the Tijon Lucas transferring out of your program, that's not necessarily a good thing, and you'll never be able to get over the hump.
Here's the big problem about that is these guys are better than those guys.
Yeah.
So that's what you have. Yeah, already. And that's what you have to. That's the scariest part of this is you can live and you can swallow the pill that is Tijon Lucas transferring, Michael Finke transferring, DJ Williams when he transferred, even though he looked like a pretty solid player that he would grow into. But
he turned into a really good player for George Mason.
Yeah, but he was somebody who or George Washington.
George Washington. Yeah, he leads them in scoring 15 points a game.
So he was somebody that you went, all those guys that you just named.
Jalen Coleman-Lands is a legit player, 4-star prospect.
Sure, but you were okay with them transferring
absolutely.
at the time.
I completely forgot about JCO.
Yeah, he was a great shooter, but you would probably love to have him right now. He would fit this offense pretty well. But I will say, out of all those guys, you could swallow that pill. But these three are better and have a higher ceiling than really any of those guys. And you can't swallow that pill if all three of them end up leaving, even if one of them ends up leaving. It's going to be rough.
The thing is, like, they can't get better in game if they're not in the game. Well, I mean, look at Georgie's a perfect example. We've seen Georgie round his game out and become a better player and become a more well-rounded player because he's been starting every game. And look where he's at now. He looks like a star. If you don't give Tevian Jones and Alan Griffin and Sam McCain the chance to work on stuff in game, then they're never going to get better. They can look great in practice, but a game's so much different.
And confidence means everything with a young player. And Georgie is playing with an outstanding amount of confidence. And Io is playing with an outstanding amount of confidence. Alan Griffin gets on the floor and misses a shot and immediately looks at the bench to see if he's getting pulled.
Well, even Tevian yesterday, I thought when he was out there in the first half, I thought he looked more comfortable than he had previously. Like, I thought he looked like he knew what he was doing better because he had played 16 minutes against Iowa. Like, you have to give them the opportunity.
I tell you what, boys, we're not the only ones that are wondering about these rotations. I talked to one of the Illinois players on the team, and they're asking the same questions too. So it'll be very, very. I think that we're kind of getting to the point where if Brad Underwood continues and persists on playing DeMonte Williams and Aaron Jordan 27 to 30 minutes a game, and Tevian Jones and Alan Griffin don't get much playing time and end up transferring after the year, that could be the writing on the wall. That could absolutely be the writing on the wall because Josh Whitman has preached patience with Illinois football, and if Illinois football absolutely needs patience, but you can change things in a hurry in basketball. And if you have 2 straight losing seasons, that could that could really hinder your ability to recruit, and that could send you even further down from where you were, and you were already in a hole after John Gross, and that could make it even worse. We're going to take our final timeout. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit of NBA. Also want to talk MLB. The Cubs make a move. The Dodgers make a move. Where do we go from here? What's going on with Bryce Harper? Oh, Manny Machado still hasn't signed yet either. So we'll definitely break that down on WPGU 107.1. Welcome back to Illini Drive, WPGU 107.1. Isaac Trotter. Jake Hassan is with us for the 3rd straight day that you've listened to him on the radio. My apologies.
Same, me too. I actually apologize.
Eli Schuster is in studio for a little bit longer before he gets off to do his duties at the Daily Illini. Eli, real quick plug. Anything on the Daily Illini that people need to go on and read?
Oh, so much stuff. Everything. Jake wrote a recap of the basketball game last night. Also, a pretty in-depth, longer notebook about the game last night as well that gets into a lot of what we talked about, but you hear a little bit more from what the players had to say after the game. So that's a pretty good. Gavin Good wrote that. That's
friend of the show.
A pretty
friend
solid friend of the program. Pretty solid one there. I also, fortunately, my column still stands and makes sense. It was published, before the game last night, but you should go check it out because I talk exactly about why the 3 freshmen should be getting more playing time, and last night's game just proves why it's so important. So a lot of good basketball stuff going on right now. Then also, if you need the scoop on any track, if you needed the scoop on any tennis, Kovacevic been playing really well. John Davis just won Big Ten Athlete of the Week.
He's so good.
Yeah, under 3-minute mile, best in the NCAA right now.
4-minute mile.
So or under 4-minute, but it was 3-minute mile.
And a 2-minute 55-second mile would be records.
That'd be the best ever. But that's written on there. So basically, every sport's covered right now: gymnastics,
good
wrestling,
stuff.
all good stuff.
Good stuff. Also, can't forget about our producer Tati Perry. Tati, how you doing?
Stop saying my name on here. It's triggering, Drake.
Okay. All righty. Wanted to hop in and talk a little bit of NBA, and I want to touch on the Bulls a little bit because Steph Noh from The Athletic came out with a really good article saying that what the Bulls have done under Jim Boylan is kind of incriminating, and he needs to be gone, but not just him, and that Gar Forman and John Paxson also need the axe as well. And the Bulls are 6-18 under 24 games under Jim Boylan. They look uninspired. They are not playing really great basketball at all. They're playing an old-fashioned game, which is a lot of post-ups with Robin Lopez. They give up a lot of threes. The Denver Nuggets took full advantage of the Bulls going underneath a lot of screens and knocked down 20 of 40 threes. And then they play the lowly Atlanta Hawks, and the Hawks just absolutely slaughtered them. And after the game, Zach LaVine had an interesting quote. Said, Atlanta, bottom 5 team just like us. We shouldn't get blown out by them at all. They were out there moving the ball, playing well with pace, and that's what we should be looking like, and we have to get to that. Bulls aren't playing with pace. The Bulls are not obviously playing with enough grit, according to Jim Boylan, and they're 6-18. Eli, what do you make of the mess up in Chicago right now?
Well, I'm just confused why the Bulls thought hiring a MAC basketball coach was
Is
a
it
good
weird
idea.
that they actually got a worse coach than what they had before?
Well,
Hoiberg is now.
Well, Hoiberg, I mean, there was everyone's really missing Hoiberg now. But what I would say is that with Boylan, I look at him as, I mean, this is a guy that's like, I can see him coaching like Akron, where John Gross is.
I could see him coaching high school basketball.
High school, sure, but I could see him coaching like a MAC level basketball team. You know, you go over to like Bowling Green and he's coaching. I don't know. This is the guy that when he sits there and he talks about grit and he talks about how we're just going to play old school, you know, get the big man moves in the post. I'm just so confused with him, and I don't understand what was the evaluation of him that made you go, yeah, let's extend this guy too. Also, it's not an interim. Like, why not at least go with an interim for the remainder of the season?
They're a fiasco. It's a fiasco right now, and I kind of agree with what Steph Noah was saying on The Athletic, saying that they do need to be gone, because if John Paxson and is allowed to hire another coach, that would be the 6th coach of his career. I don't care how good of a GM you are. If you have 6 coaches, that is just not sustainable. It's not good, and I think it's time to tear it down, because this Bulls roster might not be great, but this should not be a team that should get destroyed by Atlanta.
It's better than the Hawks.
Exactly. This is not a team that should be fighting with the Cavs for the number 1 overall pick. I'm glad that they are, because they'll might be able to get Zion Williamson or R.J. Barrett, but at the same time, you have Lauri Markkanen on this. You have Chris Dunn on here, and people talk about Jim Boylan is 6-18, and Fred Hoiberg was 5-19 during their both 24 games. Hoiberg didn't have Chris Dunn. Hoiberg didn't have Lauri Markkanen. Hoiberg struggled a little bit with injuries.
I mean, these players seem to hate him. So
yeah,
so I
they
think
seem to not like him.
I think
like,
that plays a role in it
all.
as well. You know, like Hoiberg, no one was sitting there saying, "Oh my God, Hoiberg, he's the worst. His practices, they make no sense." You know what we're not going to do? Practice. Like that didn't happen with Hoiberg. So at least, you know, that wasn't the case. Boylan just, he makes them not want to play. So I don't understand the evaluation to make him head coach. I don't understand what he's trying to do with that organization. I can't see him lasting long. He'll be the coach next season, but for all I know, he could be fired after next season.
I think that there's a really strong chance that the Bulls front, or I would hope that the Bulls ownership decides to take action after this year and completely tears it down, because I don't think you can go another year and a half and waste Lowry and Chris Dunn and Zach LaVine's. And
they're going to let him draft, and they're going to let him draft a gritty, big center that's not great. Well,
out of, like,
actually,
Slovakia.
what I said yesterday, yeah, I can see that. But what I said yesterday was that I could totally see them just sitting there and, you know, completely screwing up the draft and just grabbing Bull with the second pick of the draft.
Oh my goodness,
be a very, very, very Bulls thing to do.
That would be right. Want to pivot really quick and talk about Victor Oladipo. Had a really bad injury yesterday for the Indiana Pacers. He will be out for the rest of the year. It's a nasty-looking knee injury. That kind of takes the Pacers from what looked like a really young, exciting roster that I really liked, and now Vic Oladipo being gone, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. They probably will, but they're just not the same team again. You hope that Oladipo gets back on track, because the former Indiana star, he was well on his way to being one of the better players in the league, one of the better two-way defenders in the league as well. Jake, when you look at that East and you see that Indiana's gone, it feels like it's kind of all shaping up for the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Raptors and the Bucks to just have their way and make it to the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Yeah, I think that's really it. I mean, as the people know, I'm not a huge basketball guy, but as Eli slides past here and I have to stand
Eli's
up,
leaving to head to recruit more youngsters to be a part of the Daily Illini.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good rest of your show.
Yeah, I'm not a huge basketball guy, but I mean, I know enough about it to know that, you know, the Nets aren't inspiring fear in anybody. The
Right.
Hornets, the Heat, the Pistons, the Wizards, they're not making anybody afraid of them. So it's pretty much all right. Let's see who comes out of the East between the Bucks, Raptors, Sixers, and Celtics.
Who would be your top one right there if you think about it?
Celtics.
I get what you're saying with the Celtics. They're still good. They're so proven. But what Kawhi Leonard's done up in Toronto is really impressive, and that could be a really interesting team.
I just feel like by the time it comes playoff time, because the Celtics are really still figuring out how Gordon Hayward fits.
There's only one basketball.
Right, but I mean, not even that. It's just how Gordon Hayward fits with this team. Al Horford is figuring out his new role with Kyrie and Hayward there, and even Tatum and Brown still like taking on bigger roles. I think once it comes down to it, Brad Stevens is going to flip that switch, and they're just going to figure it all out at once.
Absolutely. We're going to pivot and talk some baseball. 10 minutes left in the show. Jake Hassan is a big baseball guy. I, of course, love my baseball. And the Cubs finally make a move today. What'd you make of the Cubs bringing in Brad Brock on a 1-year, $3 million deal? Kind of feeding a little bit to Cubs, a lot of Cubs fans that were really anxious after this offseason with no one basically on the roster other than Daniel Descalso. It kind of gives them a little bit of fodder for a little bit before they start getting antsy about Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Cubs fans wanted more from their team this year. Brock, he was once a free agent. I mean, he's fine, I guess. I mean, most of the big guys are off the market already. You saw Ottavino sign. You saw Robertson sign. You saw
Kimbrel's still out there.
The Cubs aren't going to pay Kimbrel. They barely paid Brock. I mean, there wasn't really. I mean, he was the best option out there unless you wanted to take a flyer on someone like Carson Smith or Matt Bush. But Brock's fine. I mean, see what happens.
30 saves over the last 2 years. Interesting to see how he fits in that bullpen. Because that bullpen is a lot of unknowns kind of going into spring training. So the Cubs will have to have some interesting battles there as that goes down the stretch. But also the other big news, the Dodgers and and Pollock,
outfielder
AJ Pollock, finally all the flirting kind of paid off, and they kind of had their marriage today. 5 years, $80 million deal.
Is it 80?
$80 million to the Dodgers.
I don't think that's right.
Or 60 maybe.
I think it might have been 80. Sounds way too high to be paying AJ Pollock that much money.
AJ Pollock to the Dodgers. How much does that change that for them? How much does that change their roster?
Okay,
4 years.
$55 million in the first 4.
Okay.
Opt out in year 3. 5th-year player option for $10 million. Okay, that makes more sense.
Much more sense.
Woo! How much better does he make the Dodgers?
Yes.
You said? He makes them really good. AJ Pollock is a really good player, granted that he stays healthy. Now, that's a huge question. He hasn't really been able to do that. He's had some freak injuries. In spring training a couple years ago, he had a broken thumb. He has some like weird shoulder injuries sometimes. But, I mean, when he's right, I mean, in 2015, when he played 157 games, he was an all-star that hit 315, 367, 498. He's really good. I mean, and he's a great defensive center fielder, too. He makes the Dodgers better, especially because he doesn't even have to play center field. He has to play right field. You have Cody Bellinger in center field, and Cody Bellinger is a fantastic athlete. He does fine in center field. Pollock has to play 120 games, 125 games, because the Dodgers have so much outfield depth that if he misses a week or two here or there, then they can cover that.
Some of the names that the Dodgers will have in their lineup, they have Cody Bellinger, Jock Peterson. They still have Justin Turner. Corey Seager is going to be back. Yep. Taylor's had a really good year last year. Max Muncy was an all-star. Kike Hernandez, and to go along with that rotation, of course, headlined by Clayton Kershaw, that's a really, really good team adding Pollock to the mix. Yeah. And the Dodgers aren't done yet, as they've been linked to some deals with JT Realmuto from Miami. You're kind of doing your top catchers list right now, and he's number 1 on your list, isn't he?
He is. So I'm currently writing a top 10 catchers of 2019 for Call to the Pen, and Realmuto is number 1 far and away. I mean, he's a positive on the base paths, he's a positive defensively, and offensively he's the best all-around catcher. I mean, if from average to power to just situational hitting. Yeah, you have guys like Yasmani Grandal who hit for better power, but day-to-day Realmuto is going to give you more with the bat, and then defensively he's still really good, and then he's a positive on the base paths. He's the only catcher that was a positive.
When the Dodgers traded Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp and Alex Wood to the Reds, it felt like everyone was kind of waiting for them to sign Bryce Harper, but that hasn't happened. Does this mean Bryce Harper to the Phillies is locked down and pretty much done?
You have to imagine, yes. I mean, at this point, unless somebody comes swooping in at the last second, unless you get a Cardinals or a Yankees or even like a Mets team that swoops in at the very last second, it
Don't
seems
rule
like
out the Cubs.
it's.
I'm just kidding.
It doesn't seem like they have the money to spend. Or
Very unrealistic.
They have the money, they don't want to spend it.
Which is a whole nother discussion for another day.
But I think at this point in time, you're looking at Harper's top two suitors as the Phillies and the Nationals. And I think with every day that goes by, it gives them more bargaining power.
And then also Manny Machado. It feels like it's the White Sox and the Phillies too.
I thought
those final two.
I thought Machado would have signed by now. After
I did too.
There was a lot of momentum with that. 2 weeks ago? I think it was.
Yeah, it was an 7 or 8 year deal with the White Sox.
Yeah, and then it just kind of stopped. So I mean, that's the way this offseason has been. It's unfortunate that it stopped again, but we're less than a month from spring training starting, and these top two guys, these two generational talents, are still unsigned. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense, but I look at this and I go, did teams not learn what they did last year? From what happened last year with all of these late signees, but right before spring training that didn't work out super well for them? Is this going to happen again with some of these guys, some of these relievers, some of the Craig Kimbrells? Now they still have they still have Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, and you look at some of the guys that are still unsigned, and I think somebody came out and said that was like an 83-win team if you combined all the guys that weren't unsigned.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really, really good team. Now, A.J. Pollock hurts that number, and some of these other guys are hurt as well, but Craig Kimbrell's a star, a closer, one of the best top 3 or 4 closers in the game, and Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, their talents are very well known.
26 years old.
It feels like we're closing in on a strike. Just because
Absolutely.
owners are continuing to try to line their pockets. The players aren't getting paid nearly what they're worth. I mean, you see Nick Markakis signed for 1 year and $6 million. That's a guy who was an all-star.
I did see a report from Ken Rosenthal, though, that Markakis had better offers from other teams. He wanted to return to Atlanta, though, which makes sense. I mean, that's a young up-and-coming team. Maybe he wants to mentor guys like Ronald Acuna more. But, yeah, I mean, you're right with these deals. I mean, I saw a graphic the other day that 4+ year deals peaked in, I think, 2015 or 2016 and have dropped by like 75% since then. I mean, it's been a steep decline. I mean, we're on a path right now where Craig Kimbrell's going to have to settle for a 1-year deal with an option, or even Bryce Harper might have to settle for a 1-year deal. Mike Moustakas is still available. He might have to settle for another 1-year deal, and he hit 40 bombs 2 years ago, and he was also really good last year too. So it looks like we're heading to a strike. You're right, because these guys not being paid what they're owed and what they deserve it's ridiculous, because when Harper came into the league, we started looking towards free agency and thinking he could get a $400 million deal. And now it looks like he might get a 1-year, like $40 million deal.
Even a guy like Mike Trout that's going to hit free agency eventually, like he's worth $500 million, and that's not going to be happening. I mean, I'd be shocked.
Close.
I'd be shocked if he gets 330.
Yeah.
And that's really, really sad. Before we get out of here, Bryce Harper to the Phillies, Manny Machado to the White Sox. That's going to happen, right? That's kind of where you're thinking, or do you have any other things now? After this whole process, it feels like no one really knows what's going to happen.
I think Machado still goes to the White Sox. I think Harper goes back to the Nationals. I think every day that goes by, it seems like nobody's jumping in there. I think the Nationals are going to say, hey, man, we're your only offer right now. They offered him a 10-year deal. They offered him 10 years, $300 million, and they offered him 10 years and, quote unquote, significantly more. How much more? I don't know. Whether that's $25 million more, $50 million more, I don't know. But they might be in a position to say, who else are you going to go to, dude? So which makes the Nationals a really good team then for next
Great
year.
Team.
It's
an
like
awesome
World Series
team.
contenders might be the best odds for the World Series after they sign him again, but
it's inexplicable, and
every single team should be in on Bryce Harper.
Absolutely, and I'm a Cardinal fan, and I look at him and I go, you have all of the room. You've made so much money for all the years. You have 3 million people come through those doors every single year. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
Right, Potty?
If you ever call her that again, I swear I will.
What, Isaac? What?
No, that's another conversation for off the air.
I'll kick you off the podcast.
That's another conversation off the air. Big thanks to Eli Schuster. He was here for 45, 50 minutes. Jake Hassan, you were great again. Third day on the show. What do you got planned for next Monday?
For next Monday, I mean, we're going to be talking about Illinois basketball. Obviously, we didn't have a show today.
Right.
So we'll talk about what happened against Wisconsin. We'll talk about what happens against Maryland on Saturday. And we'll get to whatever news happens between now and then, too.
Jake Hassan, Tommy Polson, Nathan DeHaan on Monday for Illini Drive at 6 o'clock. Also, big shout out to our producer, Tati Perry. Thank you for all you do. I'm Isaac Trotter. Join us again on Tuesday. We'll break down Illinois basketball, probably maybe some Illinois football, NBA, MLB, and the rest of the sporting world. You're listening to Illini Drive, WPGU 107.1.